All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Montessori 101 Practical Life. My name is Betsy Romero. I'm the Director of Equity and Engagement here in Montessori Public Charter Schools. And tonight I'll be presenting our facilitators. We have Amanda Hollick, who's a primary guide at the East End campus. We have Leticia Torres, who is also a primary guide at the East End campus. And we have Fatima Green, who is a primary guide at our Brooklyn campus. Also joining us is Carly Harlebaus, who's our assistant head of school at the East End campus, and Emily Prophet, who's our assistant head of school at the Brooklyn campus. Thanks for joining us. We hope that this session is informational. If you have to leave early, don't worry. We are recording the session and you'll be able to access it on our YouTube channel later on. So take it away.
Can you go to the next slide? All right. Just a little overview of how it's going to run tonight. We're going to do a brief overview of practical life, go through some descriptions and presentations of some of the practical life exercises, talk about ways to implement it at home, and then have some time for questions and answers at the end. You're also welcome to put any questions that you have in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them as we go along, or hold questions till the end. All right, so what is practical life and why do it? Practical life is one of the areas in the Montessori classroom that you have probably heard about by now. It is one of the first areas that children are introduced to when they enter into a primary environment. Practical life activities are composed of tasks that are performed on a daily basis that kind of help us assist in creating and maintaining and enriching our environment. So we focus a lot on care of self and care of environment. As humans, we all sort of crave this sense of order within our lives. So we find effective ways of performing those tasks so that we can instill beauty within our lives. I'm sure you have all noticed your own children observe kind of the ways that you move around your environments and interact with them. And they are super interested in participating. So kind of by engaging in these practical life activities, children are able to kind of find that harmony between their mind and their body and gain a lot of knowledge through purposeful practice of these real life experiences that are provided through the activities that we have in our classrooms. Since they are participating in a lot of the same tasks that adults do, they gain a sense of belonging and are introduced to a lot of aspects of their own culture. You can see some of the most important reasons that we have practical life activities in the environment is to help develop a child's control and coordination of movement, as well as their concentration and independence. And then we also have kind of some more indirect preparations if you're thinking about getting them ready for future writing works. And, you know, in the United States, we read left to right, top to bottom. And like I said, we focus a lot on care of self and care of environment. So these skills really become foundations for their future learning. So if we're thinking about something like spooning lentils, which we can look at a little later, if we're spooning lentils from one bowl to another, for us, we would kind of think like, why would we do that? But you know, our child is actually getting their hand ready to hold a pencil. So, you know, this motion then directly relates to the way that we hold pencils for writing and picking up small objects as well. I think Fatima will now kind of talk about some of the qualities that we have within all of our practical life exercises.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So we have several qualities of practical life. I sometimes call them characteristics that we have for the children to prepare them for practical life. And the first one would be culturally specific or familiar. And that means that the tools that the child finds in our room will be tools that are used for performing the activities in the child's local environment, society, and home. Um, for example, from what I learned in my training just recently, for example, a child in India would not normally use a broom as per se a child in the United States. They're more used to using a broom. They wouldn't use that in. So we would keep the materials culturally specific to our environments. Another quality would be real, meaning we use all real materials, nothing plastic, everything is made of natural materials such as glass, wood, metal, ceramic, more natural materials. The materials present a challenge to the child as they're understanding there are natural consequences to being careful with your movements using the materials. Another quality would be purposefulness. Everything has a purpose. We're not just doing it just to do it. Like they're actually learning how to do something to better the environment and their community around them and to help themselves. Everything is breakable, made of glass, because we want the child to understand how to walk carefully, how to carry something carefully. And even if it does break, understand that sometimes things do break. We clean it up and we start all over again. It's okay. It's not the end of the world if a glass breaks, because we break a lot of glasses in our class. Aesthetically appealing, meaning that they look beautiful, they are clean, they are appealing to the child's eye, they're at their level. It's not high up on the shelf, it's just right at their eye level, hand level, where they can reach it, which gets me to child size. Everything in our room is child size. The tables, the chairs, the sinks, the bathrooms, and all of the material that has to deal with practical life is based for their hands, not ours, so they can grip and manipulate it. Color coded. Everything is color coded by section. So if a material is presented on the shelf as, say, like wood polishing, all the material for wood polishing would be one specific color. So the child knows everything that goes back within the basket to put it back on the shelf. Everything is color coded. Hand washing, all the towels may be one specific color. So we know those towels are just for hand washing. So color code is very important. Orderly is also important because everything has to be in order, step by step. In order for the child to be successful, they have to know each step. So there's a prep step, there's a doing the material step, and then at the end, there's a cleanup process. So they have to understand it's not just take a piece of material out and then you just leave it. You have to put it back the same way that you received it off of the shelf. And limited means that there's only sometimes just one piece of material. Sometimes it'll be two pieces of material, but no more than three, because that teaches the child that, oh, I have to wait if I want to use this material. So everything is limited. It's not a large quantity of each, because we're trying to teach the children to be responsible and have patience and be kind and courteous to each other. All
Okay, now we are going to talk about the practical life materials. You see right here in these beautiful pictures, you can see some of the activities. Practical life materials that focus on caring for individual and community needs. Something looks like a chores, Right here, you can see the Montessori cleaning station. You can see the broom, the mop, some brush right here, and right here on the bottom, you can see something like practical like activities, like a food preparation, like slicing an apple, slicing vegetables, maybe right here, arranging flowers to beautify the classroom. These kind of materials, they are going to help the children to develop, to connect the child with the real life activities to the work. Usually 3 years old is the first experience that they have in the Montessori classroom when they enter the first time, the first school year. They have the opportunity to practice and learn these activities. Practical life are materials are designed to promote the development of the emotional growth, physical coordination, as well as cognitive preparation for reading and writing. Materials, that is the most beautiful thing, because materials are on open shelves and freedom to choose after the child receives the lesson. The child receives one lesson in the Montessori classroom, and most of the time the children say, oh, can I work with this material? If they already received the lesson, they are allowed to practice the material. And do you know, that is something that made me feel so happy in the classroom, because you can see the children in the beginning of the school year, they cannot hold very well the trays when they carry the materials. But that's kind of the activities that are going to help them to support their physical coordination during the school year. They are going to develop their concentration. And the most important thing, we encourage the children to develop their independence, doing everything by themselves. And also they create the order and sequence, following step by step all the lessons. And the most important thing, they feel so proud of them because they know that they are contributing, they contribute to their community. Okay, next slide. Who is the next?
I almost forgot to unmute myself. All right, so preliminary exercises. This is the first area of practical life and some of the first activities that children do in primary when they enter. Each of these activities is short and simple and doesn't require a lot of concentration to complete. However, these exercises help to orient the children to how we work and move within the prepared environment, and it gives them a sense of how presentations work. So when we're giving a lesson, we invite a child to our lesson. We present the material to them, doing it exactly in the way that we hope to have it completed. And then we'll invite the child to complete the activity. So these kind of short and sweet little lessons give them the idea of, this is my lesson. This is how I'm going to approach every lesson with the guide. And so they're able to kind of complete those independently. These activities will lead to independence and prepare the children for later work in this area, the practical life area of the classroom. Each of these activities isolates a skill that the child will need kind of for future work in practical life or other areas of the classroom. So kind of going back to that spooning example I mentioned earlier, spooning helps prepare the hand for holding a pencil, even though, we're doing no aspect of writing besides kind of getting that hand ready. They're moving one, scoop of lentils from one bowl to the next bowl, making sure that they're being very careful and purposeful with their movements. And so they're kind of indirectly preparing themselves for that kind of future work in a different area. These activities are often phased out over time and replaced with other practical life activities that either provide a new challenge or that kind of build on what they are already been doing in that, with that, developing those skills.
Yeah. Care of self is basically caring for yourself. We have dressing frames that teaches the children these activities. I brought a couple things home. We have the button frame. Some of you may have heard the children say they worked on the button frame. Teaches them how to button and unbutton, per se, their coat or jacket. Ultimately, that's the goal. We also have the zipper frame where they practice if they have a zipper or their pants or their jacket, teaches them how to do the zippers. And we also have the snap frame that I brought home. And a lot of the jackets that are coming in now are the snap jackets. So this is a hot commodity in my classroom because everybody wants to learn how to snap their jacket now. But these activities provide the means for your child to be physically independent. So they won't have to ask you, Mom or Dad, can you help me zip up my jacket? Can you help me put my shoes on? Can you help me tie my shoes? These are things that we're working with them to learn how to do independently on their own. In Montessori classrooms, self-care is just as important as the academic portion. Me also being a Montessori parent, I was concerned when my 3-year-old at the time was coming home and was just wanting to wash dishes and sweep the floor and iron some clothes. And I was like, well, is that what we're doing? Like, I didn't know, but it's very important. It teaches them to learn their identity for their physical needs, how to take care of themselves, and also to be a helper to you in your home as well. And honestly, it's like a huge step for them, and they really get a self-gratification out of helping you at home and feeling like they're really contributing to their community. We often are in a hurry as adults because we want them to do it quickly or we want them to do it a certain way, but we have to learn to slow down and let them do it. If it takes them, I'm sorry to say, 15 minutes to get their jacket on so we can get out the door. Sometimes it may take 15 minutes for them to get their jacket on, but at the end of that, they feel such self-gratification that they got that jacket on by themselves and were able to get out the door. So it's really the adults that need to slow down and just let them help themselves because it benefits them in the end. It also encourages their independence. And like I said before, their self-confidence. And also they're empathetic to other children in the classroom that can't do that because they're always willing to help out or show, like, I'll help you, I'll show you. So it comes in very handy. Some of the lessons that we give are, like I said before, the snap frame and the zipper frame and the button frame. We have the bow tie frame, which helps teach them how to tie their own shoes ultimately. Hand washing, which, right, it's very important now during COVID, so we're always washing our hands. Dressing and undressing, being able to take your shoes off, or if your child does have an accident, they're able to go in the bathroom and change themselves. They don't need any assistance. Blowing the nose, packing their lunch if possible. If they bring home lunch, letting them have that independence to do that is very important. Even in our room, we have food prep, apple slicing, banana slicing, orange peeling, strawberry cutting. Just the fact that they get to prepare their own snack by themselves and then sit down and enjoy it is so enlightening. They love it so much. Brushing your hair and brushing your teeth. And these are also things that, like I was saying, that you can do it, they can do at home as well with you all. But these are the things that we are presenting to them in the environment.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the care of the indoors environment. As a teacher, we teach our students have to take care about of the environment, and they are really good helpers in the classroom because they love to keep the classroom clean and organized. And also depending of the needs of the classroom every day, because sometimes we need some volunteers to wash the tables, maybe washing windows. Sometimes they offer, especially 3 years old, they love to sweep the floors because they work in practical life with the pouring exercise, just putting some seeds, some water, and sometimes they spill the seeds or water on the floor or on the table. They like to sweep the crumbs on the table. And sometimes they love, especially when the children, they work in practical life with the washing dishes activity. Oh my God, they spill water everywhere. And the children, they offer to mop the floor. And also they love, there is one of the favorite lesson, at least in this classroom, is arranging flowers because they like to see flowers everywhere, different colors. And also I think that Fatima comment something about of the lesson. We're going to show the lesson according with the culture of the children. I am originally from Mexico, and I hear I'm really surprised that everybody has a laundry machine. In my country, it's completely different because there are some communities that they don't have access to a washing machine, and they have only the water, a pipe of water there, and they have a big rock like this, and we wash like this, just scrubbing the cloth. And after we rinse the clothes and we rise on there like this. It's something completely different. Okay, now we can show the children to take care about of the outdoor environment in the way that we do it. We have the gardening class. Most of the time they have a special teacher to show they have to planting flowers, vegetables, and also we invite the children to watering the plants, and during the fall, sometimes invite them to sweep the leaves. Okay, and at home, maybe you can do the same thing, invite them to practice that kind of activities. I'm sure that the children, they are going to be a really good helpers at your home. Okay, I'm done.
All right, so grace and courtesy. Grace and courtesy is a super important part of our Montessori classrooms, and can kind of be thought of in two parts. So grace really promotes harmony between our mind and our own bodies, and courtesy emphasizes that harmony between ourselves and others. So really kind of thinking about how we are within the classroom, since we are working in community with everybody else. These presentations are given to children so that they are able to navigate themselves through the classroom in both kind of physical and social ways, so that we're able to kind of live together in the classroom and move in our environments. With these presentations, children learn vocabulary and proper procedures to build their awareness of others and to kind of orient themselves within the space. So since children really love and learn best through practice, the presentations for Grace and Courtesy are set up as a role-playing opportunity. During these presentations, the children are able to observe the adults using specific language and body movements to kind of navigate the social situations that we have decided are really important to kind of flush out. And then they're given the chance to practice on their own with a small group of about 2 to 3 students. Of course, these are opportunities for practice. So the lessons are offered in neutral moments rather than in the moment when something's happening, so that they have that opportunity to practice that skill as many times as they feel is appropriate for them. And these lessons really help children feel empowered and confident and capable, and in navigating those situations. You know, when things arise in our classrooms between children, they're kind of pulling out this toolbox of grace and courtesy lessons that they've had, and they're able to put them into practice since they've had that moment where they're, you know, learning the appropriate language. They're learning the way that we can kind of ask for help, or you know, how we're going to stand in line and make sure our bodies are being safe. So, you know, if you look here, some of the examples are how we can ask for help, how to greet someone. That does look a little different these days. Before we could give handshakes, we could give hugs. Now we're doing a lot of like elbow bumps and waves and greetings and good mornings. How to let someone know you did not like something rather than screeching at the top of your lungs. How can we use our words? How we can stand in line and make sure that we are not bumping into everybody like bumper cars. So the grace and courtesy is really kind of one of these important tools that we have to make sure that we are providing our students with the vocabulary that they're going to need, and giving them very direct information about how we are hoping that their bodies will be within our environments.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Oh
Yeah.
no, what happened? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
good.
you,
I
Miss
was
Miss Green.
gonna say. Okay, this section is about movement with the whole body. There are 2 works included in this section: Walking on the Line and the Silence Game. These 2 works in the classroom are the only practical life activities that does not have any physical materials. These activities require just the child to control their body through their mind and will, and then it will lead them to the equilibrium in their body. It's the only 2 presentations in practical life that can be for the whole group instead of an individual presentation, which is very important because this includes the social aspect, because the children are all moving towards a common goal, and it helps them to get into a state of flow. The walking on the line has many stages to challenge the children's balances, because at this stage of their life, they are so interested in movement that they're sometimes all over the place. So, for example, walking on the line challenges them to slow down, walk heel to toe, maybe skipping on the line or carrying a single object when walking on the line. The silence game requires the students to have more control and will with no movement at all. And before we can even get to the silent game, the community has to be ready to do preliminary activities such as waiting for your turn to speak to an adult in the room, waiting in line to wash your hands, waiting for the polish to dry. When you're doing wood polishing, you have to wait. That's like a step. So movement is very important in practical life.
Okay, most of the families all the time, the question is how I can take practical life home. That's really easy, because many of the same activities that the children that are learning at the school can be done at home. Okay, but it's really important. The most important thing is that you need to maintain a relaxed attitude and sense of humor, because sometimes you are going to show your child to do something that maybe for you is something simple activity, but for them it's not really easy to practice. You need to be acknowledged. You need to remember things like acknowledge effort regardless of results. Maybe you can show to your child. It's so funny because you can show something like this: slice a banana in the small pieces, and in the moment that you invite your child to do the same thing, he's going to slice in big slices, something like that. But you need to say, oh, nice, I like it. Can I try a banana? Something like that. Try to don't redo any part of the work from in front of the child. Maybe you are going to have another opportunity to show one more time the same activity. I don't know, maybe at 9 or another day. And remember that repetition and practice are what lead independence. If the child keep practicing and practicing, one day he's going to discover that he already mastered the activity. Do you know, you can start with the small task, maybe sorting socks for laundry, maybe preparing a, I don't know, a jelly sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And one day it's going to surprise you and say, oh, mommy, daddy, I already prepared your breakfast, something like that, or your snack. It may be difficult for them to activities without making a mess. I already comment to you about maybe washing dishes. For adults, it's really easy, but for them, they need to follow step by step all the activities, and sometimes they're going to forget some of the steps, but doesn't matter. Later, they are going to master. When they grow up, they're going to master how to do different things. You can prepare your home environment, do you know, with maybe in the bathroom, helping them with a small bucket. Maybe they can help you maybe to mop the floor. You get a small mop. We can give you there is one company that is Montessori service that you can order in line to buy a small mop, the small bucket. Also, they can help you to sweep the floor with the small broom and the living room. And in the kitchen area, you can add maybe some small containers and they can practice maybe cooking and baking and helping you at home. Remember that while you are modeling, you need to teach the name of the objects in the environment. That is really important, because sometimes when you are making right here at the school, or maybe you are doing some activities, especially working in language area, sometimes the children, they don't recognize the name of the pictures. And it's good that the children, they practice every day, learning new words, increasing their vocabulary. Activities for a young child can be just scrubbing maybe dishes, helping unload groceries, dusting, vacuum. They are going to love to do that. Sweeping the floor, putting, maybe setting a table before lunch or dinner time, or maybe for breakfast time. And also wiping countertops and tables. And the most important thing, they can help you to put the toys away and clean up the rooms. Okay, I'm done.
All right, so lastly, how can you support this work, this practical life work? Really, first and foremost, respect your child's independence. This can be super, super tricky. Sometimes our first instinct quite often is to help, to step in, to help, to do it for them. But this is really their moment to try and acquire those skills and to practice them and put the things that they've been learning into practice. So there's a couple of suggestions here on ways in which you are able to kind of respect your child's independence and allow them to be, as independent as they possibly can. So one of the first things, carpool or drop off pickup, please say your goodbyes at the door, or now the car for a lot of us. Our Montessori classrooms really are the child's space. Every classroom is called Children's House in a different language. So that's their space, that's their environment. And so we want to make sure that we're respecting that. So we're going to it is really hard sometimes. So if your child is struggling to separate, passing them off to a staff member. If we're thinking about toileting independence, the use of cotton underwear at home, and really kind of refraining from using pull-ups or diapers encourages that toileting independence. They have to really feel for their bodies, get a sense of when they need to go, and it allows them that opportunity to kind of be like, oh, you know what? I feel like I need to go to the bathroom. Let me go do that. We talked about allowing to the opportunity to practice skills within neutral moments. So if you're hoping to rush out the door and have your child get their jacket on, maybe that's not the time for them to start practicing zipping or snapping or buttoning. Instead, you can take an old jacket and have them practice with that so that they're really developing that coordination, that concentration. And then when it is time for them to get out the door, you're not, come on, let's go. And really keep in mind that everything's going to take a little bit longer. We're asking 3, 4, 5, 6 5-year-olds to make sure that they're doing the best they can to be independent. And some of the skills that we have, it took us years to learn too. And so we have to make sure that we are allowing just a little bit longer for that to happen. So like I said, if you're trying to get out the door, that's probably not the time. Plan accordingly. Give a couple of minutes extra, 10, 15 minutes for them to get their shoes, their jacket. They'll be good. We do it every day. I don't know that we have a questions page, but this was kind of the time that we have set aside now. If you have any questions about practical life for us. Yeah, we don't have a slide for it. But can we exit so we can see everyone's face or screen?
I had a direct question just in case somebody else had it. And I responded so I can answer it too. A parent asked that their son is potty trained well as he is woken up. But when he sleeps, he wets himself. Should I take away pull-ups for this time as well? And I said yes. I think that being able to have your child have consistency helps with the independence and transition. Also avoid giving your children any liquids before bedtime, because then that helps as well. And then not having, because I think that sometimes kids get used to those pull-ups as well, but I think having them in just regular underwear every day at all times helps with those transitions from toddler to, just a little young child or little human. That's worked for me as a parent. But yeah, I think that the best part is having a lot of underwear close and by, and making sure that you have waterproof mattress protection to help with the transition. But definitely avoid the liquids before bedtime, at least 30 minutes is my recommendation. Do we have any other questions? And you can unmute yourself as well. We have a very small group. I don't see any questions. I guess you guys did a phenomenal job and nobody has questions.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
I missed the beginning and I'm driving, so I apologize for not putting my questions in the chat. Can you delve a little bit more deeply into how the independence now at such an early age is going to foster their learning in later years? And is there, when do you start overlaying, or are you already overlaying the sort of, I don't know, rudimentary academic stuff?
I can take some, if not all, and Leticia and Fatima, please feel free to step in as well. So, okay, a couple answers for this. Independence within our classroom is one of the things that we are hoping that a child will achieve. So a lot of the practical life lessons are, one of the direct aims of these lessons is independence. We start off with kind of bite-sized pieces, so we're not going to ask a child to go through this whole sequence of steps to achieve a goal. Like, we'll start them off with something like spooning or buttoning, or something that is manageable, and work up. So we have other practical life lessons like hand washing that require a child to complete a series of steps in a certain sequence so that they can accomplish a goal. If you're looking at hand washing, you're not going to wash your hands and then put soap on them and then dry them. You'll still have soap on your hands. So there has to be a certain order that they're done in. So these are practiced, as many times as a child wants. And the things that we're asking them to do are things that are manageable for them. So we're not going to offer them a challenge that is too far out of their realm of possibilities. We're going to give them something that they're able to do so that they feel confident and comfortable in doing it independently. And practical life is only one area of the classroom. So these skills and independence then translate into the other areas. So if you're asking a child to do a math work, and it's something that they have had a lesson on, the expectation is that then they're able to do that on their own. They can go to the shelf, they choose it, they take it to either a table or a work mat, wherever they're working, and they complete it on their own once they've had a lesson. We're of course always there to help support if there's ever a time that they need assistance or if they have a question. But the kind of the thought is that once they've had that lesson, they're able to kind of choose it whenever they would like. All of the things in our practical life, for the most part, have indirect aims. So kind of moving on to your second question, have indirect preparations for other works. So if you're looking at things that are require several different steps, you're preparing them to take on those more challenging math and language works that require several different steps in a certain order. Even we're talking about, I just have the spoon here, so I'm just going to keep bringing it up. Spooning, we have the way that they hold the spoon to be able to complete the spooning activity is then the way that they will, I only have a pen, sorry, will hold a pencil when they're going into doing some later writing works. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that, or I hope I answered all your questions, but if I didn't, because there was a couple in there, let me know and I can try to take on those as well.
No, you did. That was helpful. Thank you.
Amanda,
Hi, I have a question. I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm Amina, Carol's mom. She just started last week, and I'm new to Montessori. So the question is, I'm still kind of confused on the academic piece. She just came from a daycare environment where, they're teaching them like their numbers, colors, and things like that she knows, but I don't want her to, with this transition, like, I know she won't forget about it, but I still want her to get kind of like that academic piece. I don't want that piece to go away. So I'm still kind of confused on how that's going to be incorporated per se. I'm like, when does that come in?
Okay.
Or if it comes in.
I'm ready. Okay, we incorporate all the activity, all the lesson in the Montessori classroom. The way that we say that we work with the children in practical life, that doesn't mean that we don't practice the name of the colors, numbers, language. We have to cover one specific curriculum for 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old. On the end of the school year, you are going to see the results. Montessori is a process, and the first experience they have the children, they can enter in the Montessori classroom just when they are 3, 4, or sometimes 5 years old. It's okay. They are going to start practicing just in practical life, but during the day, maybe they are going to receive one lesson, just maybe with vocabulary cards. In another moment, on another day, they are going to work with numbers, with some paper numbers. They're going to be practicing numbers. In another moment, they are going to practice in some paper letters, but doesn't mean that we're going to forget that kind of things. And in another moment, we're going to show maybe one lesson about the geography, learning the name of the continents. And according with the age of each child, all the child, they are going to receive a specific lesson. Because you can enter to the Montessori classroom and you are going to see 3 years old just working with numbers 0 to 9. And you're going to see maybe 1 4 years old working with teens numbers, counting the beats. And you're going to see maybe 5 years old working on addition. You're going to see one child, 3 years old, just writing and tracing in the tracing tray, sun, something like that, just tracing the letters. But you are going to find one 5 years old writing a composition on the journal. It's something like that. But it's a long, long process. It's that all the time I compare that thing with the mommy, that you have your baby right here and the baby start just crying and after start crawling and after stand up, start walking and after start running and after turn up 18 years old, I'll go away. It's something like that, Montessori. You need to wait for 3 years. If your child is 3 years, you need to wait and we're going to show you the results. Maybe you say, oh, the teacher, what it's teaching in the classroom, but maybe you don't trust as a teacher, but trust your child. He's going to show you the results or she's going to show you the results of the end of the school year. You need to be patient because the children in the environment, they absorb all the information. Sometimes we have some students, they say, I know how to read. And I say, I never show you how to read. And they start reading because they observe the older kids reading. They learn the letters, the numbers, the colors, the names of the shapes, just watching their friends. And do you know, this is the reason that it's nice to have 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old and multi-age classroom. And we look so happy. Let them happy. Don't worry about it. It's going to learn. We're going to show you the results on the end of the school year, sweetie.
Thank you. I understand now.
Do we have any other questions? And while we wait, I added a resource for families. It's a book that will help you kind of like break down by age if you want to bring Montessori at home and practice more. I highly recommend it. It's actually new this year. I've been reading it. And so if you get a chance to get it, if not, we have some copies at each campus for you to borrow from us as well.
Hi, I kind of want to piggyback off that question. So I do get what you were saying about, but it's kind of hard for me because I kind of like try to work with my son as well at home. And so it's hard for me to kind of like know how to or what to work with him at home without knowing like anything direct that he's learning at school, you know, because like, for example, he knows numbers, but he doesn't necessarily identify them on paper. Like when he sees them, he just knows how to say them out loud. But I don't even know if that's something that he's working on at school. So it's kind of like, you know, I want to help, you know, whatever he's doing at school, I kind of want to help progress it and do my part at home, but I don't really know how to do that without, you know, because it's kind of like an open, like you said, independent learning. So I don't know what to piggyback off of, if that makes sense.
I guess I'll take this one. So when it comes to the math, we don't just do, of course, 0 to 9 at the 3-year-old age, they're learning the sandpaper numbers, but they're also learning they're not specifically learning how to write their numbers on paper, but we're tracing the numbers. We're preparing them for writing. And we have spindle boxes where they are physically holding one object. They know it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So they're not just learning the word, they're actually learning that it's a specific amount that they're looking and seeing and touching. And then once we progress down that line, then we can get to the writing the number portion. So it's basically a progression. So I feel like you all are thinking that they're only learning practical life, they're not learning anything else in the classroom, but that's not the case. They're getting a little bit of each area, but at their age level per se. Like instead of learning how to write with a pencil at a 3-year-old, they're doing the classified cards like somebody mentioned. We're tracing sandpaper letters in the sand, or even just using your fingers. So they are getting that academic portion. It's just not what you're used to. Even for myself, I had to figure this out for myself too with my children, that it's not what we were traditionally grown up in, taught in school. With our pre-K 3, they were making them practice writing their name over and over again. But that's not what Montessori is. And that's why we keep your children, again, for 3 years, because you're going to see the progression. You're going to see it. You just have to trust this and know that they are getting a little bit of language, they are getting math, they are getting some sensorial, they are getting geography, they're getting these things, but at their age appropriate level. Like I don't want to jump into having them making a map and they can't even, distinguish what continent is what. Like it's a progression. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay, I really would like to add something that they comment before is something like that. Before we start tracing the numbers, the sandpaper numerals, and it's a process again. You're going to trace the numerals, sandpaper numbers, and after the second step for the children, they are ready, tracing the numerals in the tracing tray. The another step is when they are ready, they are going to start tracing the numerals on the chalkboard. And the last step is going to be when the children, they are ready, maybe they turn 4.5 or 5 years old, they are going to start writing on paper. That is a long process, but you are going to see again the results on the end.
We have a question in the chat. Would you be able to touch more on self-ownership and how it's encouraged during the school day and how that transitions to them leaving with their belongings at the end of the school day?
I'm happy to take this. From kind of what I'm understanding of this question, we do want to allow children the opportunity to kind of be, like we said, independent in taking care of themselves. You know, whether that means putting on their shoes, their indoor shoes, then changing into their outdoor shoes, making sure they have their jackets, their water bottles. Of course, that's all kind of, we need to build on that. We want to make sure that children, you know, if they are feeling like they're thirsty, that they have access to their water bottle, that they're given that opportunity to fasten up their own jackets, with reminders, of course. Because of that, of course, you'll see sometimes that they won't change their outdoor shoes to go home, and they'll be, you know, coming home in their indoor shoes, or you'll notice that they've forgotten their water bottle at home. Those are things that they happen, and that can be corrected the next day with just reminders. If you ever are concerned that, you know, your child has left their water bottle or their jacket or something that they brought to school with them that's not coming home consistently, I would just recommend, of course, reaching out to your child's guide to see if maybe it's gone missing, maybe it's, you know, been stuck behind a container that they just they continue to forget it, something like that. Kind of work with us. We're here to support them. We're here to support you to make sure that everyone's getting home with all of the things they came to school with, and that we can make sure that we're kind of implementing tips and tricks for them to remember all their things as they transition throughout the day, between, you know, being in the classroom to going to recess to going to before and after care and things like that, so that we can make sure that we're getting things where they need to go. Of course, always labeling things is going to help exponentially. So if you can stick a label or a Sharpie with your child's name on it, that is going to kind of aid that process a lot.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that just as a reminder, since we're recording, I want other families that are watching the recording to know that what Amanda said, you can definitely reach out to your guide to get an idea of some of the activities you can do that will help support what they're learning in the classroom. We allow for the child to guide their own pace of learning, but there is a sequence, of course, to the lessons that we give or they give, and there are definitely things that can be done at home as well. We will hopefully be working on a resource for you so that you can better understand how the scope and sequence of the Montessori work happens in primary. We won't be giving you everything, but we can give you some of the stuff because it's a lot. But we want to make sure that you guys have a clear understanding and an idea of how your children are learning in the classroom. Unfortunately, this school year, because of COVID, we won't be having what we call silent journey and discovery, which allows parents to experience the Montessori classroom in person. Hopefully next year, you will have the opportunity to be able to enjoy that experience. That will allow you to better understand how Montessori materials work in the classroom. And so I think with that said, if there's no other questions, I want to say thank you to our team for being able to facilitate today and sharing their knowledge with all of us. Thanks to our parents for joining us after a long day of work to ensure that they're also learning alongside with their children. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Our emails will be shared when I send out the recording tomorrow morning, so that if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. Also, don't forget that you can always email your guide to ensure that you're asking these questions. They will also love to help you out. Don't forget, there's a resource in the chat if you would like to purchase the book, or if there's any other needs for any other resources, please reach out to me at betsy@leemontessori.org. And have a good night, everyone. Thank you all.